Hello and welcome to the Worst Podcast. I'm your host today, media producer Alexander Wilcox, and today we're going to be hanging out with Petros. Now, Petros is our product manager, right?
That's right.
But you haven't always been one, right?
No, sir.
So before you were here, you were, I'm going to call it a serial entrepreneur. And I always found that really interesting. I'm the kind of dude that never went for the full entrepreneurial exploits. I was merely a contractor for 14 years. But you're the one that actually formalized it. You're like, I have corporations and such.
Yeah, that's right.
So I wanted to start out just like before we get into your companies, okay, where'd you grow up? What were the stuff like? Where'd you grow up? What were the things you liked to do as a kid? I want to sort of build the whole narrative here.
That's a great question. So I grew up in Hollywood, actually. Grew up in Hollywood, and then loved to play on the street as a kid. Like play baseball outside. We would build forts from random rundown stuff. Run around, ride our bikes, get lost, just explore. Be a kid. Back in the days where like you just would love to be outside. So that was just like my childhood. It was just exploring.
What did you want to be when you grew up as a kid? I know I wanted to be a weapons designer because
That's
I
cool.
liked robots, and then
That
I
is so
realized,
cool.
oh wait, there's other parts with that. Aren't as cool.
It's funny. Like when I think about what I wanted to be growing up and versus where I actually ended up, completely different. I would always like fantasize about being a rocket scientist.
Mm-hmm.
I would like draw like spaceships that I would design or whatever to go to Jupiter and crazy fun shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed that. So I would like get lost in these fantasies of like being that kind of a person or that kind of a career. And that's just not where I ended up. But that was a passion of mine. I loved astronomy. My folks got me these back when encyclopedias were actually physical.
Oh,
they got
Encyclopedia Britannica is like the big ones. Yeah.
There was a series, like a science textbook series for kids as part of that, and one of them was on space, and I would just like get so into that. So that's where my love of astronomy and space came, and I wanted to be a rocket scientist. Excuse me.
And then you realize how much math that entails.
Yeah, I was like, I'm good.
So you're going through school. Obviously, as a kid, you want to be a rocket scientist, and then you start getting into high school. You went to college,
Yeah.
right? So what'd you pursue in college?
Yeah, in college, I went down the path of psychology, psychobiology to be specific. I really liked.
Oh, even harder.
Yeah. I've always liked the body and the mind. Just how does the mind work? Why do we perceive things or process things the way we do? And also how the body works and why it works the way it does. That has always intrigued me, and it was always something that I understood intuitively. Like when it was explained to me in school or when I read, I was like, oh, that makes sense because, it's logic. It would just click for me. I don't know. So I kind of went down that path thinking I would go to medical school, but decided it wasn't for me halfway through my...
It's a lot more school because you finish in general, it's like you finish your 4-year and then at the very least you have another 4 years?
Yeah, like minimum residencies, like 4 more years after like...
8 years of school.
8 years of school after bachelor's.
Wow.
Yeah,
so
so
like 12 total.
You get 4 years of bachelor's, and there's 2 years of actual academics in med school, and then 2 years of rotations where you go to all the different departments. And then once you're done with that, you pass your boards, then you go into your residency where you actually practice in that
where
field.
you work for
technically
nothing.
work for, but for nothing. It's pennies, right? But so like 8 years post undergrad, you're done. You're like, oh, okay, let me go get a job now with $300,000 in debt, and you're 30 or something. I don't know. It was just not where I saw myself.
That's a pretty big sword of Damocles to be hanging over your head at that point in life. Okay, so you finished school, and what's your first thought? Like when I finished school, I was lucky enough to have some stuff going on for video.
Yeah.
But if I didn't, I would have had no idea where to go.
Yeah, well, immediately I was like, okay, the bachelor's I'm getting is not going to give me any career path. And I was like, what do I want to do? I had no idea. And I was like, let me go into research. Let me just go to grad school and I'll figure it out. Halfway through grad school.
Let me go to school and take more school to figure out what I should do after school.
I had no plan. I was like completely
I
like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So let me just at least pick something that I can get a job with afterwards. So I went to a biology master's. And halfway through, I was in San Diego. So that's like the biotech hub.
I happen to be from there. Everyone that doesn't know, I grew up in San Diego. So yes, it's a great place for biotech. It's actually, after Qualcomm, it's probably our biggest
industry. Yeah, that's right. You're right. So I was there and, got introduced to a lot of the companies there and people. And it was just funny. Randomly, I was at one of the jobs I had during grad school. And it was so random. That's why I always remember this. One of my coworkers, she's like, oh, there's this networking event, downtown or whatever. I forget where it was. And I went. I'm like, okay, let me go check it out. And I ended up meeting the guy that I co-founded my first company with. I was more like a founding member. I
Well, that's
wasn't
lucky.
Yeah, it was completely random. He was like the calling the shots, but it was just so random. I sparked with him, and then he asked me what I'm interested in. I'm like, I've always wanted to be part of a startup. I never thought I could. And he's like, well, I'm planning this. You want to help us out? And I was like, sure.
What year would you say this is at this point?
This was actually 2012.
2012. Okay. So we've got decent internet. YouTube's really a thing now.
Yeah.
And I think I know what your first preneur was. So which company was this?
This was actually this one. I don't think you're familiar with. It was called Omni Bio.
Oh, okay.
So we were the first company that actually looked at the microbiome of the vagina. So the vaginal. So if you guys don't know, there's different. All of your body, on and in your body, you have bacteria everywhere. So different compartments have different types of bacteria.
The flora and fauna.
Flora and fauna, exactly. So your gut has a certain thing, your skin and whatnot. So we were looking specifically at the vaginal microbiome and its impact on premature birth. It was long suspected that the bacterial balance being thrown off would trigger some cascade that would eventually cause your body to like abort the child or prematurely born. So we were looking at biomarkers that could predict that, to help develop a predictive test. That was like...
That seems logical. I mean, we do that with gut bacteria for certain things now, so it makes sense.
Yeah. So that was the first thing, and we got pretty far, but it kind of like got derailed because the CEO actually tragically ended up passing away.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, that's a showstopper as well as a horrible thing.
Yeah. So it was kind of like it got derailed after that. So that's when I actually founded my actual first company myself with my friend, I should say. Yeah, and that was...
So then what was this next one? This is the VR company,
That's
right?
the VR company.
Okay, so what was the genesis of like starting this company? Obviously, VR was hot.
Yeah.
Just like in 2021 with Web3 technology and NFTs. So what was it a client you had and that's what formed the company, or was it?
No, it completely like one of those stories where you look back, you're like, wow, that really happened. So it was 2015 when like the VR thing was making a comeback, and Google had just announced their Google Cardboard.
I remember that. I was at Google I/O 2012 that year.
That's right.
And I remember getting one. Yeah,
that's right. And so my friend's like, let's create a splash page and so you can pre-order it here and see what happens. So we created a splash page.
So it's like a coming soon, effectively.
Pretty much like if you build it, they will come type of a thing, right? So we put it up and we get like 500 pre-orders. I'm like, just on the traffic from Google alone, just from that announcement.
Some good Google foo.
Yeah. And then we got contacted by, I forget what the first company was. They're like, oh, can you custom brand these for us for like a marketing thing? We're like, yeah, of course. We had no idea what the hell we were doing. And so we went and figured it out. And that's where it was born. Started off with his working out of his uncle's apartment, actually. And then we quickly scaled from there. But that was how it was born.
Okay, so when you guys first started, was it making content for the headsets or was it actually just branding the physical things themselves?
Initially, it was just branding the physical headsets themselves.
Easy. That's a drop ship.
Super easy, yeah.
Basically, right?
That's it. From there, we were like, well, this is a whole thing. This is an industry. And we had a guy that my friend knew, my partner knew, that was, at the time, oddly enough, he was working on this thing called 360 Stories, where they would travel to like cool, like hot destinations, and they would film all the main tourist areas in VR, and you could like navigate around like Google Street.
I remember seeing something like that. They were trying to go like heritage areas or interesting places that maybe a disabled person or a really old person couldn't get to physically.
Exactly, and also for education too, you could use it. But that's actually, those are great use cases. And so he was doing that, and we were doing that. We were like, well, why can't we, provide a service beyond just the headsets? Videography, app development, web development.
Why can't we be soup to nuts? We're leaving money on the table here.
Exactly. So from there, like we started a team in Armenia. We had eventually we grew up to like 12 engineers. We had a designer and customer service folks. It was all out of Armenia, and the main company was here in the States, but our engineering team and everybody was in Armenia. And we started providing all these services, and that's where like the brand really grew to like a VR marketing agency.
Cool. And so So you have your initial company formed. You start with your first product, which is the for people that don't know, they're basically fold up boxes that you put up on your eyes like this, and there's two lenses in them, but you'd hold it effectively, right?
And your phone would go inside.
That's right. You put your phone into it as well,
and it would make your phone a VR viewer essentially.
Yeah, because your phone has an accelerometer in it, so you can just like move around. So it works just like modern VR headsets. Not as nice, but
yeah, of course. less I guess
Sophisticated.
sophisticated is the right word. That's exactly right.
So what were some of your like projects you like doing with that? Because I mean, it's super fun. I got to film some VR and AR projects with various brands. I always thought they were super cool.
Yeah, that's super cool. So most of the things that we did was with a lot of large brands trying to get into VR and using that as a marketing strategy to engage
like activations or something.
Activations, exactly. So we worked with a lot of companies. Like my favorite one was The Simpsons. We worked with their 600th episode on the VR episode. So I got to meet like Matt Groening and the whole team,
which is pretty cool.
It was super.
That's the
rad.
creator of The Simpsons. I as well. I got to meet him as well.
That's right. So you were telling.
Where was that at? Was that at Comic-Con or was
no?
that
This was
thing?
actually at the YouTube offices in Santa Monica.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's like the original YouTube offices.
That's the original YouTube office.
Yeah. So I got to do a. I met Matt Groening when they were doing a hologram Homer Simpson.
That's awesome.
During Comic-Con during the Simpsons panel, and Matt Groening would talk to him like during it. It was pretty cool.
Man.
I really enjoyed it.
That's
Like
rad.
getting to do like activations like that, or like to meet people that actually make the things I watch,
Yeah.
or work with brands I actually use is kind of my favorite stuff.
Oh my god!
Because I'm like, I'm canon now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and it was funny actually. I think I asked him then. I was like, "Are you ever going to bring back Futurama?" He's like, "No, we're not going to bring it back." And I think you're the one that told me.
Cut to 2022.
Cut to 2022. It's coming back. Yes,
It is coming back.
Thank you, Matt.
I just refinished watching all of it, so
Yes,
I'm
that's
pretty
awesome.
stoked.
Yeah.
And then how did that? How long were you there for? And what was kind of the arc? Oh, actually, let me back up. What is something you encountered early days that you were not thinking about that was a real oh shit moment? Because I feel like this is something that happens a lot when you're starting a new project, a new venture. It could have been operational. It could have been anything. What's something that comes to your mind?
Yeah, the oh shit moment was one of them was when Android came to us and they needed like I think it was 60,000 headsets, something very large.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and we were in a 1,000 square foot warehouse at the time. We had maybe like 7 people like doing the assembly and shipping and pick and pack and all that. And so we had to figure out how to scale up the physical office spaces as well as our employee count, our personnel. And while that was happening, I think it was like a series of orders that just came in that was just super exorbitantly large amount with good business coming in at the time. So we're like, oh my God, we have like 2-3 months to get all of this done. And we had to figure it out. So we ended up finding this random obscure, because we couldn't find a warehouse. We couldn't find one that.
Because you need it now.
We need it now. We also didn't know how long this like high volume was going to last.
So you didn't want to lock into like a really long
lease. We couldn't get like a 2 or 3 year lease, which is what a lot of these warehouses require. And so we found this recycle yard where this guy had this random, like very crappy, like metallic warehouse, just junk.
I'm thinking something out of The Wire.
Pretty much, yeah. And so like we had asked him to like give it to us for like a 6-month period, and he agreed because it was just dead space for him. So he ended up like, moving all this stuff out, and this was like very janky. Like there was like no like working conditions.
It wasn't built out correctly.
It wasn't built out correctly. We had to like get porta potties and all that.
Oh man! Oh, so
yeah,
like even the plumbing.
There was nothing. We just had electricity, which was great. But long story short, we ended up getting the spot. We hired up to 73 people to like work in the assembly, like in the warehouse.
So a literal 10x.
A little 10x, and at the same time, like managing client expectations and still like having that pipeline coming in. So it was just like obviously a lot of sleepless nights, but it was so thrilling. But that was like the first oh shit moment that we had to experience. We're like, if we can't do this, we're gonna leave a lot of money on the table. Number one, number two, like we're not gonna build a reputation. We're not gonna
kill your energy.
Kill your energy, exactly.
Because your current client, usually you use that to parlay into your next client.
That's right.
Like, so if you suddenly have that stop, you have to start searching again.
Yeah.
And making that value proposition is so much harder than when they're coming to you.
Yeah.
And you just need to prove what they're hoping.
Exactly. Because they would get referred to us a lot of the time, either word of mouth from other clients or Google directly. And so when they come to you from Google especially, if you don't deliver, it's going to be bad, not just for
You're
your
just done.
reputation.
You're just off the list
Google's
now.
not going to give you any more clients. And we had a good relationship with Google. They would they would hand us all the high-end clients because they knew we would.
Which is a great partner to have at the moment.
Super great partner to have. So that's kind of where that first oh crap moment happened.
And then, okay, so you have the company running. How did you decide, or actually, did you ever want to be a CEO? Or did you just want to make your stuff? I thought I wanted to be a CEO.
Yeah.
And I've been making stuff, mostly freelance, for like 14 years. up until being here, luckily.
Yeah.
And I've realized I don't want to be a CEO watching my best friend go through it. So how is that for you?
First of all, it's super stressful. So I don't know if, like, I don't think that I wanted to be a CEO. I remember, like, when I was in grad school, starting off with business, when I met that first guy that we did the biotech with, I just remember not being satisfied with where I was in life. Like, I didn't want to be like, oh, I have a graduate degree, cool,
and just rest on your laurels.
Yeah,
on that.
I just, like, I was like, I want to do something cool. I want to do something big. I want to do something impactful, something positive, something that people can actually benefit from or have fun with. Whatever.
Something you're actually interested in.
And I'm interested in. Yeah, like, I want to do something big. That was like my thing. That was the vague idea I had in my head. And so when I was doing this, the VR company, I was having a lot of fun. We were doing cool things. We were being innovative, cutting edge, all that.
Riding
good
the wave
jazz.
of when it was like super hot.
We were experimenting, trying to build like actual physical headsets that were not cardboard based, and
before that actually started to exist.
Exactly. So we were trying to do, obviously, like when Samsung and them came into the picture,
the gear, the
HTC and all those things.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the HTC Vive, the Galaxy Gear.
That's what it was. Good memory.
And it was of course the Oculus was like one of the first.
Yeah. So we wanted to make like the middle range headset where like you had the super high end with the HTCs and Oculus.
So it'd be like a Quest 2.
Yeah, exactly. So like Gear was kind of an attempt at that. But we wanted to kind of like go into that market, that like middle market. It was not quite a cardboard, but it was not like a huge HTC thing.
A kind of piece of hardware that you could actually develop without being a multi-billion-dollar company.
Yeah, exactly. That was exactly right. But we couldn't land that. There was a lot of other problems that happened there, money being one of them. But it was not like, so I never had the idea of like being a CEO. I just know I wanted to do something of importance, and that's kind of what like led me to my next. Thing.
It seems like if you can't find the opportunity that you want, you have to then become the person to make it. And then that means you have to be, I was a CEO of one, so I'll just call myself the infinite contractor.
There you go.
But yeah, once you start hiring other people and now their lives are like under, your decisions, it's like, oof.
Ooh, man, like I tell you, like the biggest stressor is the fact that if you don't perform, that person can't, afford to live whatever the cost of
you
living
could be actively ruining their life in the short term at the very least.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that like is a huge motivating factor. You want to do good for the people that work with you and do good for you, and that mutual respect is what really can like drive the company forward.
And at the same time,
yeah,
it's a bit of pressure cooker.
Yeah, exactly.
So then going from the VR, how did you decide to leave there? And then what did you go into next?
Yeah, so it was a combination of things. I had gotten the idea of the next company, which was, so I called it Empower Pets. It was sort of a bigger idea to like create products designed around dogs' anatomy and behavior to help them accomplish goals on their own. And so to empower them to be independent and achieve things, right? The first product that I came up with was Bristly, which was a way for dogs to brush their own teeth.
Because like that's a pain in the ass. Normally you have to anesthetize the dog.
Exactly. So it's either you anesthetize the dog, pay like $700-800, which is not only a lot of money, but it's also dangerous for dogs. They can die under
especially
anesthesia.
Smaller dogs,
smaller and older dogs. And it's the number one health problem for dogs. 84% of dogs have that at least by age 2, and it's a lethal problem. It can actually
it can affect your blood and things like that.
That's exactly right. I actually lost my childhood dog because that oral disease had become systemic and infected his liver. And so when I had obviously I've always had dogs, but I had gotten 2 new puppies at the time, and I was like, I want to just make sure to brush their teeth. It's a struggle. You try to do that.
A human brush is not going to be very effective.
They have these like mini dog brushes that are essentially human brushes.
Yeah.
And you have to like hold them and like pry their mouth open and struggle.
Oh, they love that.
Yeah, they love that. And who also like people don't spend the time. The statistic I remember, like the market stat was like less than 1% of like pet owners actually take the time to brush their dog's teeth, which is like obviously that's why it's the biggest problem.
Well, that would explain why 99% of dogs are
exactly. I was talking to a vet, like she even admitted, like I don't brush my dog's teeth. No one does.
It's like the nurse that smokes. You're like,
we're
all full of our contradictions.
It's just one of those things. So I kind of like came up with that idea, and at the time I was still doing my VR company, but as I started to develop the idea and it became a real product, and I got some investment for it, I decided that it was time for me to like transition over because like there was something there. It wasn't just like a random idea.
It was now time for you. So VR company's going well, and you felt like you had some people you could pass that off to.
Yeah, I mean, there was a full team, and it was actually that was becoming more of like a marketplace anyway. Now it's actually just a marketplace. They're no longer really an agency. And so it was at the time, it was the right time for me to move on because one, it was going a different direction that I didn't really have any value to give there at the time.
Yeah.
I didn't know much about that stuff.
If you can't be helping, you don't know where to go, why you stick around.
Exactly. And, like my partner was also my friend / roommate from college. So it's like, hey, like he understood. And we agreed that it was like the best. So
Easy breakup at that point because you have a good understanding.
I mean, we're still great friends. Like there was no like breakup. It was like, hey, I got to do this.
It's just you moving on to the
I had
next
to do
thing.
it. Like I was super excited. This was where my passion was. And I've always loved animals. So it was like a natural sort of, I think, evolution. Mm-hmm. But the idea had come to my mind and I just like, it hit me one day because I was like, what can we do to like fix this problem? And I think I was driving back to Orange County from LA because I would like go back and forth between the office and home. Mm-hmm. And I was like thinking like what the hell could be the solution to the problem? And it hit me that I was looking at my dogs play yesterday and they love to like squeeze things between their paws and just chew on it.
Squeaky toys. They love squeaky toys.
They push it between their paws and they chew. So you got to design something with the physical structure that allow for that behavior to occur so they can stabilize the brush because they put it down. So I had the paw pads and then there was like grooves on both sides and their teeth would go in and out and just brush.
So effectively, you've tricked a dog into playing, but they're actually brushing their teeth.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So how did you start out with the, obviously you had the idea. Mm-hmm. How did you come up with the design? Because, I mean, you're not a mechanical engineer, so just take me through how that started.
It was 7 or 8 months and $30,000 wasted.
Woo! Yep.
But this was essentially like I had sketched something out where like I knew what I wanted the thing to look like. Mm-hmm. Now, whether or not that's actually engineerable, manufacturable, moldable.
That's the question. Because, can this angle be made with an injection mold process?
Exactly. And I had, like, no idea about any of that stuff. I had no idea. Like, I was this, like, bright-eyed little guy. Like, oh, I want to do this and all these cool things.
Make a cool dog brush.
So it was, like, a lot of weird sketches of the idea in the beginning where, like, it was a bit much. But then, like, as I engaged with engineers and, like, talked to people that I was just like making phone calls and asking questions. That was all it was. And people were willing to help me. It was funny. Like they would give, even if they weren't going to do a project for you, they would like give you some advice that you can take and learn from and then like iterate on or give you a contact.
Yep.
And so
people recognize passion. If you are actively trying to do something and you are being like, here's what I'm trying to accomplish. People are far more apt to toss something to you than being go, hey, can you just help?
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly
I'm trying
right.
to do X.
I think that hits the nail on the head because that's exactly what I noticed. And when people tell me like they want to do something but they have no idea how to do it, I'm like, just jump in. Just try something. Just start.
By starting, I've always said with writing, I stress myself out. The blank page is super stressful.
Oh, dude.
And so what I say is just start writing something and then, because everything is when it's in your head. Once it's on the page, it's there. It's there. And you can start saying what is right and what is wrong.
Yes.
So you can start answering your own questions there.
That's that's exactly right. I actually agree with that 100%. But so that's where it was. So I kind of like went in and I learned about the constraints that I had to, work with and whatnot. So eventually I found
your shape, your materials, stuff like that. And then how it's going to go through the manufacturing process.
And everyone would tell me that this shape that I had come up with, the final shape that was like the shape that it had to be because it had like a toothpaste dispenser as well built in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So everyone kept telling me, well, we can't mold this because of the undercuts and here and there and there and there. I finally found somebody that was like, I could do this. I've been doing pet toys forever. Like, I got this. I was like, yes, finally. And so we got to a point where like he did the engineering and then he had a contact that would actually produce Kong toys. So my toys were being produced with the Kong Toy Factory.
We know those are high quality toys. It's like the fact that you just say the name and I know exactly what it is.
That's right. So it was like super cool that we got to work with that factory. So that's kind of like how that happened. Okay,
so you have your product. How did you go about deciding? I mean, I guess your market research was kind of done personally because people have dogs and people aren't treating their dogs for this. So how'd you go about figuring out where to place it? What the market is, stuff like that.
Sure. So I had some background. Like I did like some independent sales repping in the pet space when I was in college, just to like make some money. Or whatever.
So you had something to rely on.
So I had some connections there that I like knew. Plus, I just knew the market very well. Like I had not only reviewed actual market statistics, but I also knew a lot of dog owners that like everyone that you would speak to, and even if they weren't dog owners, whenever you would tell them about it, they're like, oh my, like, yes, that reaction they would get. It's not like, oh, that's cool. It was more like, oh my God.
Everyone instantly realizes what a problem that is you're solving.
And it was genuine, and the reaction to the product solution itself was also genuine. So I was like, okay, there's something there. But how did I know where to place it as far as like in the stores or online?
Yeah. Well, how do you know how to sell it? Like, you know what your product is. So how do you know who's going to buy it, which people you need to be pointing at, what your audience is at the end of the day?
So
market research.
Exactly. So I want to step back for a minute, because what I did was I had initially gotten $100,000 investment, which is nothing to launch a physical product.
That is ridiculous. Making a physical product is so much harder than doing anything digital.
Yeah, exactly. And mind you, we had already burned through 30,000, like get like the initial thing like ready to at least exactly,
or a version of it at least. Yeah,
it was like a sample, but like the molds were finally made after that, like iterated and like messed up and whatever, and we had like a thing ready to go. So I was like, I don't have enough money to like launch this. I'm gonna burn through it, and I'm gonna get nowhere.
And you'll just be done.
So I stumbled upon, I forget how I found them, but I found this company called I Love Dogs, or iHeartDogs.com. They were like a huge e-commerce brand,
a subsidiary of iHeartRadio.
But they were this huge e-commerce brand, and so like I think on LinkedIn or somehow I found the CEO and COO. I was LinkedIn, CEO and CEO of the company. I wrote to both of them.
It's cold message, yep.
Cold messaged. And they replied back, and the COO was like, yeah, dude, I love this concept. It's brilliant. We want to get into the heavy into the dental space. You're hitting like a really pain point in the market. Like it was a pain point in the market, still is. And so like they actually happened to be in Orange County, which was very coincidental.
Very convenient.
So like they invited me over to their office, and I took some samples. And after the first meeting, they loved it, and we did a 1-year licensing agreement. It was exclusively through them. Like they would buy and pay me for it and royalty and all that good jazz. But what that allowed me to do was leverage.
Because you're getting marketing effectively.
Huge marketing and brand recognition.
Sales already taken care of for an X amount of units.
Sales and marketing and brand recognition. And also like proof of market. Like proof.
To prove that people actually buy it and use the product,
And for the price point that we wanted to, which was like never a problem.
Yeah, how do you establish a price point? Oh my God.
I'll tell you about how I did that. But long story short, we leveraged to launch it because I knew I was never going to launch it on my own.
Yeah.
So we did that, and then that's when after we were done with their 1-year thing, we kind of like scaled from there. We took on all the sales after that. But price point is interesting. You find, because this was technically a unique product, right? It was, yes, a chew toy. Yes, a dental product.
It's kind of between the Venn diagrams, between two products.
Exactly.
Really.
It was kind of like a market, like a separate space in its own. But I looked at essentially the rubber toy and the nylon toy market, and I looked at the dental market. The toothbrushes are like on the $11, $12 range, and then the rubber toy, nylon toy ranges depending on what you buy. But like there were toys that were, I think, for a decent proportion of the market, like $18 to $25 range.
When you're getting in the better, like a Kong, like your name brand, your stuff that should be lasting.
It's in that range, plus the fact that they actually had utility beyond just a toy.
Exactly.
So I think I was like, okay, $19 for the cheapest, $24 for the smallest, and $24 for the biggest.
Oh, of course.
In that range, right? Dogs. Small, medium, large. And so we kind of like, I would literally go into like PetSmart and Petco's, like I stare at the shelves, I look at all the products, and like, okay, this one is like similar in size and like whatever, blah, blah, blah. Here's the price point.
Classic market research.
That's it. Like I would just go in and look. And I was like, I feel like this is a good price point. And it worked. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. So then you're going through the manufacturing process. Of course, you're usually using China.
Yeah.
And, copyright law and trademark doesn't seem to be as robust there as it is here. So the question I always have when anyone's making a physical product is, did you get knocked off?
Oh, Lord. Did I get knocked off? It's an understatement. So at some point, it was so bad. I'll tell you how, like a couple of the little examples. Well, when you go to Alibaba and you search like a category of product, and they have like a little icon of like that product. There's like this icon. I forget if they still do it that way, but like my product was the icon of the dog toy product on Alibaba.
You became the Kleenex of dog toys on Alibaba.
I was the Kleenex of dog toys. And you would go on Amazon and eBay. At some point, there was like over 1,200 listings on each platform of the product.
And none of these are yours.
None
it's
of these
just
are mine.
Iterative of yours.
Yeah. And a lot of these, by the way, were like silicone, which is like super soft rubber. Like you don't.
Oh,
make
that would rip
silicone
open.
Yeah,
I would think.
Immediately. Well, I had a very bad incident once that I could get into. But long story short, like we got knocked off so bad that like even those those Amazon sellers that make videos of like, here's all the products to sell on Amazon. They would feature our product like, oh, this is a cool popular dog toy. Oh my god, it got bad.
That must have been. So what do you do about that in the moment? Is there anything you can do apart from just making sure people know which is yours?
So that's a great question. So it depends on if you have a patent or not, which we did. The gray area comes where when your patent's still pending.
Oh, for like the first year or two.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because when I filed the patent, I wasn't going to sit around for like 2-3 years waiting for the patent to get through. Like you don't do that, right? Like you kind of like
you
go
could
for
miss
it.
the market if you're waiting
100%
that long.
can. So we filed the patent. It was still pending when the counterfeits like ramped up, and so at that point, all I could do was try to fight the messaging. I would obviously put out warnings and things on Facebook and our website.
Yeah, like these are made of not great materials. And
exactly, and they're counterfeits. I had people come to me. That's the example where like this lady, I remember she had sent me a picture of her dog post-surgery and the pieces that they had taken out of his stomach.
Oh.
Because he had eaten it all and he had to get surgery to remove it. And that like pissed me off. I was
because that's antithetical to what you're trying to do.
Exactly, because you're trying to improve dogs' lives and these people are trying to like just make a quick buck. And it's like the counterfeiters were not pleasant. That's ultimately what like had a lot of the downward pressure because we were booming.
Yeah.
We were doing great, and then
Hence why you were ripe to be stolen from.
yeah. Well, it's funny, like when we did our version 2 on Kickstarter, we became the first pet product at the time, only pet product to ever break 1 million in orders. And so we became very popular on Kickstarter, and that's when we started noticing the knockoffs because I think a lot of these like counterfeiters they scour Kickstarter.
They are. I remember the fidget cube.
Oh,
I did a product for a knockoff of the fidget cube before the Kickstarter ones came out.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing videos for a company here in Austin, and I was like, "What?" I thought it was the real one. I was like, "Nope, this is not."
It's fine, and they the sad thing is like they started shipping they started selling before I even shipped that version 2 out.
So you got beat to market by a crappier version.
I mean,
of what you're
granted,
trying to
we
do.
had that 1 year of the original sales with I Heart Dogs, but we were like doing our official like independent launch of like just us with the improved version, and like you said, we got beat to market.
Man, that's rough.
Oh man, it was bad. It was bad. So, but once the patent did issue, we started to like sue left and right. Yeah.
Which how successful? We don't get into specifics, but how do you feel you did? From the amount of litigation you went after versus things coming up your side.
Yeah, the level of counterfeit. There's still counterfeits out there. Obviously, you can't get rid of them. But the amount of like the difference from like where it was before to where it is now, like is significantly lower. We went from like the 1,200 so listings to like maybe a couple hundred.
Well, that's a big that's a big difference
when we were actually operating. So like after that, I had to kind of like ramp down operations because they had pretty much impacted the business to the point where we couldn't even.
So the market was flooded at that point.
The market was so flooded, and the thing was like you're building a brand name, and you're not a Coke or anybody big where like they know who you are. So if I'm coming up with like
you aren't a universal brand.
Yeah, like we're not exactly. So we were popular. We would go to these consumer shows and trade shows. And they're like, oh, I've seen you guys. Oh, you're that guy. Oh, my God. So we would have that recognition, but it was, specific to the market of people that we were in. But we didn't get a chance to mature as a brand before that impact, before that counterfeit sort of effect came into place and like sort of like dampened the growth.
Yeah, you were a mid-level company like trying to get into being like. I don't know.
We wanted to be like a Kong, right? You wanted to be like a Kong. Like we had plans for like multiple product lines and things like that.
But getting knocked off that early kind of like made it way harder to scale to that point.
Yeah. You pretty much just reduces your like not just your revenue but your profitability, like your margin.
Of course,
because you're having to pay more per marketing dollar to like actually get a sale because there's a knockoff being sold for $3, but it's like very crappy material that can kill your dog.
And making that value proposition to someone that isn't paying attention to anything other than price.
Yeah.
Is very difficult.
Yes,
it's hard to explain why these two things that look exactly the same.
I mean, I could make it and sell for that much too, but like I wouldn't be in business. I would hurt dogs.
It wouldn't
unfortunately.
be the kind of product you're trying to
Yeah,
make.
exactly. So that's kind of what happened there. And at that point, I decided, like you said, like that CEO life, right? It was not just like a roller coaster for me, but also like there were people that were in it with me, like my partners, my friends, my family that were actually like working with me to like, doing customer service and pick and pack and shipping and all this.
You form a community.
Yeah, and it's like I can't like hold them back either. And it was like I had to call it early enough to where like that would give them enough time to like find something.
You want to have some golden parachutes, or at least some like idea. It's not just on Friday we're done, and then people were expecting to work on Monday, because that's you never want to have to do that.
No.
That's
Like
people.
I was always transparent. Everyone knew everything that was happening all the time. They knew when we were up. They knew when we were down. They knew that like, hey guys, I'm scared. I don't know if like a few months from now we're gonna be in business. So like, start to like think about what you want to do.
Well, it's always really good to communicate that stuff, because if you're forthcoming about the health of a business consistently, it allows people to have more of an idea of what's actually going on, and to be less afraid of of some degree of volatility.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. I agree.
So you're taking the company, you're bringing it back down. So where's it at right now?
Right now, it's kind of like, whereas I guess you can call it like minimal existence. Like we are in the stores that we're in. There's like physical retailers that we were in, mostly in Canada actually, more so than in the US. I mean, I had physical stores in the US, but because of the fact that I can't really operate it anymore, I haven't been able to maintain those relationships in the US. In Canada, there's a distributor that I have that's fairly big that kind of like buys direct and like.
So it's
does their own
effectively like a drop
distributing.
ship
It's
to
like a
distributors
drop
right
ship,
now.
yeah, but it's very minimal. Like there's literally that one client at this point, which I don't even know if that's going to be continuous or not. I'm not sure,
Well,
because
it's hard to know with the
the market, exactly. So like at this point, it's just like it ramped down to pretty much like, oh, here's a client, he orders whenever he needs it. Now I don't know if like we're going to be able to continue that relationship at all, but it kind of like, I would say, for lack of a better term, died.
Yeah, but it's always good to remember that 99% of companies do.
Yeah.
And I think people always go, well, it didn't go on forever, so was it worth it? It's like, no, you made an awesome product, and you got to like actually change the lives of dogs and make people happy and go through that whole process.
Yeah.
And after playing Mr. CEO Man, Mr. Entrepreneur, you've come here to WRST Collabs. So how'd you decide to make the jump to being a product manager from being a serial entrepreneur?
It's funny, like product is like entrepreneurship. It's like being a mini CEO. Mm-hmm. You're like the CEO of the thing you're building in this team, right? And well, that's a very loose term. You're not the CEO in the sense that like you have like the decision making ability.
You're not doing operations as much, right?
But like in the sense that like a CEO like will work on strategy, understand the market, like where to take it, what's
like
value.
You're more product focused
CEOs. Yeah, like so it's like that. So it has all the similar elements of like creating cool shit and trying to like build a product in the market where you see it going. Mm-hmm. So that part of it was the exciting part of running your own company without the stressors of like, oh my God, am I going to like have a company tomorrow, or are people going to have a job tomorrow?
Payroll. Just a big difference. Like you don't do payroll. You're not deciding like healthcare or something, or having to worry about HR. Like these are
all the administrative stuff that just like make it not fun.
That's the stuff that made me realize I didn't want to be a CEO because I really like making the thing.
Yeah.
Case in point.
So
like
we're making a thing now, guys.
Yeah, I like to know like how the sausage is made and to be the one deciding what it's going to taste like.
Yeah.
So for me, like coming into a full-time job, it was so interesting of having all these things I don't have to worry about nearly as much. I'm not coming to get clients every month.
It makes your job more if it's a good company, it makes your job more satisfying, and you're also more effective because you're not as worried.
Yes.
Like you could be creative, you can take a little bit of risk, and you can try things, that are reasonable, but it's more enjoyable, I think.
Well, getting to concentrate on your core competency, because like I'm not as great at sales or billing or accounting as I am at making videos or making art. So it's like, it always bummed me out that like I'm not as good as business as I feel like I am at making the thing.
Yeah.
And having that disconnect was super frustrating.
Yeah, I agree.
So then now being a product manager, what are do you miss being a CEO? Do you miss, because of course there's the more stress, right?
Yeah.
But if you own it all. It's all on you.
Yeah, I can honestly say I do miss it, because I genuinely did enjoy the journey. It was fun and challenging, and that's what I like. I hate being stagnant or like bored. I don't like.
It's an easy way to get depressed.
Yeah.
It's just doing the same thing.
It's like,
for
oh,
too
okay,
long.
this is easy. Like, what next? So I like the unknown of it. And I like the challenge of it. So I do miss it for sure. Yes, if I hadn't experienced what I did, maybe we would have still been in business. But
Well, of course, you never know.
I do miss it, but I can't say that I'm like regretful of where I am now.
Yep, I can understand that.
Yeah.
Like after having to run my own business for so long, the realizing just how much it was stressing me out on the regular, like through my everyday life, I didn't fully come to realize that until a few months into working here.
Wow.
And I was just like, whoa, I'm not worrying about a client paycheck coming in.
Yeah,
or
I
paycheck.
can be chill,
Yeah, and I get to work with people more than once.
Yeah,
That's been the nice thing for
build
me.
relationships, which are sweeter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's probably my last question for today. I wanted to start talking about like looking forward to WRST Collabs.
Yeah.
So we've got our motley crew here. We're looking in 2023. It's a bear market. Things aren't going great for Web3 right now, but ups and downs.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about like how were you coming? We were trying to come up with a product we wanted to be selling, and maybe a SaaS. We're not sure what it's going to be yet. And I want to know like how are you going about figuring out the market, because we don't want to talk about this quite yet.
Yeah.
For this.
So I think it's interesting. Like like you said, it is like a bear market. Things are slowing down, but the technology is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. So you still need you do need the picks and axes and shovels and things like that to continue to build what you're building in the
Infrastructure
space.
is always going to be needed.
Infrastructure is always going to be needed. So I think it's an area where there's a lot of value to pursue. There's a lot to be done in this space. There are various ways that it can be embodied, and we think that that's where a strong play would be. And so when we were doing it, obviously our director of product, Alex Wyckoff, has a lot of insight here and has really led the vision on that. We think that what we have sort of planned out is the way to go. There's a lot of areas for improvement on the current products in that space, and there's also a big gap in this particular area that we want to focus in, which we can't really talk about much now.
I know it's
like,
so
I don't want to talk much
about it right now. This is going to be the sweet tease. You'll find out.
Round two.
2023. You'll find out.
Yeah. So we a lot of that was sort of logically understanding where the gap is, and also what sorts of things are going to be needed no matter what for this entire industry to be built on.
Because you have to be asking the question, what is a mainstay?
Yeah, exactly right, mainstay. And so when we decided that, we were looking at how do we do it right, how do we do it better than everybody else, and that's where the product role really comes in. It's like looking at the landscape, assessing what's out there. What is your baseline of like, hey, this is where everything is. We got to do it better than this. At least this and better.
Yeah, to establish who the players are and then build out, okay, well, what are they giving? Who are they giving it to? What are they charging?
Yeah.
And how do we do better, different, more?
Exactly, like your delighters and whatnot. So I just did a comparative analysis.
What was that, sir?
The delighters.
The
you have
things that make people delighted.
The must-haves and then the delighters. The must-haves are like the seatbelt, right? Like you have to have a seatbelt in the car.
It needs wheels.
Right,
Yeah.
It needs wheels and a seatbelt, but it doesn't have to have like heads-up display, right? That's your delighter,
okay.
like
the ooh.
That's the ooh, right? And that's how you you differentiate between and this is not a knock on anybody, but like your Honda Civic versus like a Mercedes Benz or whatever.
Yeah, or
right?
just a Honda and an Acura.
Sure,
the premium brand versus the regular brand.
Perfect comparison. And so like looking at that and what are those delighters, what are those must-haves, and also more importantly, like we talked about earlier, price point. Like what is a price point that people are willing to pay? Is there any evidence of like people paying a certain price point already in the market?
Is it a SaaS offering? Is it a
SaaS
one and
offering?
done?
Right.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So we looked at all of these things, and I think we do have a clear path in place. And there's a lot of value there. We've gotten a lot of data points that indicate that this is a strategically beneficial product to pursue. And so as we move forward there and we build out, we look forward to talk about that more.
And I guess one last thing before we wrap up, I always think about this SaaS versus like actually just selling something one and done. Like, what is your opinion on that? Because I think from a business perspective, SaaS is great.
SaaS is great.
From a client, from a user perspective, SaaS can be really frustrating.
Well, yes and no. Here's how I think about this. Like SaaS, I think is a good model. Why? Because if I sell you something, right, you buy the thing and like that's it. It's kind of more or less. I'm sure there's like exceptions here, but it's like static, right? It's the thing you've bought. SaaS, you get an ongoing, a dynamic product that will adapt to your needs, right? Like
there's an understanding it would be
general
iterative.
sense. Yeah, it's iterative. It's customizable for the most part. A lot of these, things have like ways to customize with it. It's going to have support that comes along with it. There's a lot of value. It's not like here you go figure it out. You're on your own. Again, I'm being very vague here, but there's a lot of value that SaaS delivers that buying a physical a one-off product does not. Both have their own space, but I think SaaS for business use, although you hate paying the bills every month, you find a lot of value. And I had the same experience with my companies. Like I was using these order and inventory management software platforms where like you pay them monthly, but they provide so much value. They automate so many things.
Like even just like QuickBooks before that.
Even
you
like
have to pay for all these things.
Like,
you need them.
Yeah. So they make it so easy that the value is there. The amount of money they save you overall, I think too, like the manual effort that goes into a lot of these solutions that the SaaS products have, that savings alone I think is worth it. So there's a trade-off there.
Well, that's effectively what we're trying to do. We're trying to make it something that will help people so they can save more money than they're spending trying to make these inferences without it.
Yeah, exactly. Just the time that it's going to save you is going to equate to a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, the hope is you make something that people can't conduct business without because it becomes so useful. So that's the hope.
That's the hope.